Okay, welcome to another episode of the Stickmen pod. I'm back again here on a nice Friday recording with Rene. Rene, good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
As usual, if you haven't already, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. But if you haven't already and you like the channel, please feel free to subscribe. Please feel free to all the bells, all that stuff. Follow the Instagram and as you see, Stickmen pod right up here in the top. And without further ado, let's get into it. So Rene, how's your week been? Let's start with that.
It's been good. It's been good.
Happy Friday. We'll start with a quick cheers.
Nothing has happened. This chair is being annoying.
Yeah. Since we had Alex on, we'll bill him for it.
It was a problem here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, how's your week been?
Not very eventful. I was just talking with a coworker of mine after Bappu. It was quite quiet, quite chill, which is nice to have those kind of weeks from time to time.
For sure.
Yeah, not much going on. I'm looking for a new apartment. That's been uneventful still, but like.
Yep.
Yeah, you know how it is.
I do know how it is. Yeah, I do know how it is. It's quite hard work finding an apartment in Finland because it's so popular, right? Especially all the ones when you want a slightly bigger one or rooms and stuff.
Yeah, we want a bigger one in the city center, so it's kind of like there's not many of those, and the ones that you see that are not taken, they're not taken for a reason. Yeah,
true, very true. Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's probably the same in a lot of countries. It's been a long time since I've actually, looked for an apartment anywhere else, as I'm sure. Same for you. But yeah, for sure. I think when I want to get quite quickly into the topic this week, I want to give a bit of background, but I randomly last minute, we're recording this episode today, but had a sort of different plan, and I last minute quickly sent Rene a link to a Twitter Spaces to listen to. Completely blind.
I joined kind of late because I was working, but then I had to go to see a notary and stuff. And by the time I clicked the link, the topic was kind of like they have derailed from the topic.
Yeah, massively.
And I listened for what was like maybe half an hour.
Yep.
And I just got tilted.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to, but I kind of knew this would be the case. I knew that you'd missed like kind of what had gone on. For what it's worth, this situation has happened probably over the last week or so. And I'll get into it in a second for the listeners and just to sort of bring you up to speed as well. But last night there was a Twitter Spaces to discuss this controversial sort of topic, and this was mostly in America, so it was like US time. It was maybe 3 a.m. in Finland. I was trying to stay awake listening to it. Ended up sort of falling asleep and switching off before a bit of extra drama kicked off.
Must have lasted for like 2.5 hours because a guy was. When I joined, they were like, "Oh, it's almost 5 a.m. here." So
exactly, yeah, it was late, and basically, that one was yesterday. Probably, I don't know, their time. Maybe this is how crazy this is. This was probably the first Twitter Spaces was the night. Like I say, it was 3 a.m. for me in Finland. Okay. So I don't know what that is. Maybe like afternoon, evening, for them. And then when I woke up. Probably the evening for them.
And already.
When I woke up, there was a second Spaces like discussing the previous space, and that's what I want you onto there. And just to give the listeners sort of like a quick summary of what this is, right? This episode in itself is probably going to be mostly around one of our more controversial topics, generally sort of speaking, cancel culture in general, and the sort of going with an example that I found, but to sort of be more specific, which we're going to talk about, because I think it's quite interesting and quite volatile, within the poker community, which is a very small, quite tight-knit, but quite self-governing community. And this, I'll just get straight into it. So there's these two players and content creators. I can name them. They've both got quite big platforms, and they're both very public figures, let's just say. One guy called Doug Polk, who is used to be a high-stakes poker pro, now sort of moves more into sort of content creation. He's got a YouTube channel, quite a funny dude, does quite a lot of sort of comedy, like info, so sort of like news, but with a bit of comedy within the poker and within crypto and within sort of other things as well. And he also runs a poker coaching site where he has various coaches on, sells coaches, things like that. The other guys Doug's from the United States, lives in, I believe, in Vegas, about 34 years old. And Charlie Carroll, who is a British poker pro, plays more live poker as online, but very, very intelligent as well, very good at the game. But you can just tell from following them both over the sort of years very different ideologies, very different sort of beliefs and opinions. And I don't, without going into too much depth, and I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but over the, let's say, the last 5-6 year sort of period, they clash a little bit over Twitter and things like that, where they both disagree with styles of play, on politics, on opinions, on vaccination, on you name it. They probably disagree on most of it. Excuse me. And so this whole, but Charlie was. It's a bit of a full disclosure and a caveat at the start. I don't have any affiliations with either of these guys. I don't know either of them personally, and I don't particularly like or dislike either of them. If I have to be kind of honest, there are certain things that Charlie Carroll has said that I find a bit odd. I'm a bit of an odd individual generally, but I don't hate the guy. And same as Doug, I think he's quite smart. I agree with generally quite a lot of his takes, but he doesn't really have a lot of hot takes, right? He sort of say scamming is bad, this is bad, things like that. Things I generally agree with. But yeah, for sure, he's definitely very corporate minded and very, very money motivated. And I think Charlie's much more a little bit like, I don't like to use the word hippie, but he's a bit hippie, a bit kind of spiritual. One of those guys where
would you say woke?
Yeah, for sure woke. But let me give a brief example. I remember him putting out some tweets before saying that like he'd gone to a doctor for many years for some kind of ailment. I don't know what it was, but he believed that he could heal himself. He said some spiritual sort of stuff he did, meditation and whatever it might be, healed a few things that he'd done that doctors hadn't been able to solve for years. And this could be true, right? I have no reason to disprove it, but that gives you the kind of idea of he's very much a holistic medicine and spiritual guy, right?
Yeah.
He's one of those guys where he sort of sings, like when he streams poker and he'll do like quite spiritual singing, and he believes it's like, I don't know, good for the soul and all that kind of stuff. And again, not here to hate on him, just giving you like that. Whereas Doug's very much more like a traditional poker player of like a bit of a nerd, but a bit like, everything's logic and this sort of stuff. But they're both very smart individuals. The topic in question where they sort of clash will be things like these tweets, like, oh, you can heal yourself with this sort of stuff. Now, the controversial one, this was about 5 years ago. Charlie Carroll put a tweet out, and this was what so Rene hasn't seen the space where everyone's arguing about it, but probably didn't see the full.
I kind of know this story. You have to be careful with the wording you use for YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't care less, but like,
no, of course. Just say, we're going to use the word sexual abuse for the topic because
that's the one YouTube doesn't like.
They don't like that one.
No, you just say SA. Or something like that.
I think there are certain words
you could do, mate, but
I think
I'm just saying
because it's the technical term for it, right? So I think it's fine.
Like the bot still doesn't like it. I'm just saying.
Okay, right.
But you can do whatever.
We're gonna I think sexual. That's what it was, right? So we'll get into that. So that's not the words that maybe other people used on these spaces, but we're gonna stay away from those sort of words. Which I think I disagree. I think all words should be used, but we'll go for the.
I couldn't care less about the words. It's just YouTube doesn't like it, mate.
I know what you're saying, yeah. But YouTube will have to live with it, I'm afraid. So because we have to be able to discuss these topics. So he put he put the tweet pretty much word for word said the best way to deal with pedophiles, right, which I think is allowed to be said, is to have empathy for them. Yeah, maybe not, right? But this was a tweet. If it's on Twitter, you can talk about tweets, right? So he said the best way to deal with pedophiles is to have empathy towards them, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong here, but let's just quickly get into it. That's clearly a bit of a controversial tweet, right? It's very short, very.
It's a bit because I agree in the sense that if you have empathy with someone and you understand their motives, it's easier to understand where someone will come from. It doesn't mean you agree. Yeah. You have to understand where someone comes from to kind of solve issues, right?
Yeah.
I think that helps. Having said that, that's a tweet that sorry,
shaking.
That's a tweet that it's gonna
push
there's
buttons.
no other reason to post that kind of thing than to cause waves, right?
But yeah, and even if there is, you have to understand when you make that kind of tweet that you are going to cause waves.
You have to know, and if you don't know, I think that's more of a problem.
Yeah. Like you're going to push some buttons. You're going to get, and let's be honest, almost everything people tweet generally is for some form of engagement, right? You don't tweet something and you want no one to read it, right? You obviously want people to read it.
And that's why Twitter now sucks.
Yeah, for sure. And you could argue definitely that, well, if you're trying to truly raise awareness of a certain topic, then tweeting, things that will cause waves is a good way to do that. But the point is, my take on it is just tweeting that in itself. You could do that tweet, and then go, let me explain, blah, bang, 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 in a thread, right? And I think that would be a better way to do things. But when you just leave it like that, where you're going to get kind of a bit of blowback, you kind of open the door, I think, especially if you're someone like Charlie Carroll, you have a big platform, you are going to open the door to this kind of criticism of that tweet, right?
And if you're someone who's online constantly, you should know already, because you already know, right?
Yeah.
You already know if I do this, it's gonna cause waves, and I should basically kind of like clarify it before. Otherwise, you're kind of setting yourself up for a problem.
Yeah, even to the point where, like, we are a very small podcast. But even the fact that we have a debate over what terminology we should use for things that should be obviously, as you said, you don't care, I don't care in terms of the we're using words. You have to use words to do a podcast, right? And obviously, you try and use like the best term or phrase generally. But I think you're very much more in tune, Rene, particularly because you've been in YouTube a lot longer with the cooking channel, Mexican in the Kitchen. By the way, please follow, like, and subscribe. But it's one of those things where
I think I'm not really sure because I don't really go into those topics, but that's what I've seen that people try to avoid.
There's a world where obviously I know certain words that YouTube doesn't like, but at the same time, like there are certain topics that are tough to talk about and you have to talk about them and you have to give them some form of name, otherwise you can't really talk about them, right? If I just said SA, well, that's just short for sexual abuse, and if I say that non-contextually, people won't even know what I mean, right? So it's kind of, I'll take the gamble of I'm going to potentially upset YouTube from saying that terminology, but it is what it is.
I know what you mean.
So either way, so he put out a tweet. Now Doug Polk, what he does, he has a YouTube channel, as I said, does a lot of news, does a lot of things like that, and he'll take things that people say, whether they be outrageous, whether they be controversial, whether they be stupid, whether they be normal but just something he disagrees with, and he'll take those topics and he'll turn them into a quite short but like entertaining and very informational YouTube video with editing. He's got a good editor, and for sure he's guilty of things where he'll take, particularly in this case, clearly doesn't see eye to eye with Charlie, so jumped on this tweet to kind of like say, well, this was a stupid thing to say because of X, Y, Z, right? All this sort of stuff. Long and short of it is he made a video about this. Not the only video he's made of Charlie, but Charlie's made videos of him as well, and they go back and forth, and it's a bit of a poker beef, if you will, right? Either way, that was about 5 years ago. Now, this is where it kind of gets a bit more, where it got a bit more heated. So a couple of days ago, Doug went onto and let's get this firstly quite clarified. In the poker community, Doug is a bit of call it a Marmite person, where in England Marmite's a spread you put on toast or whatever, and you either love it or hate it. People love it or hate it, right? I would say a lot more people these days hate Doug Polk than love him, and a lot of people are indifferent, but he has a lot of hate because he said he has a lot of unpopular opinions.
I've never tried Marmite.
I do love it, to be fair. Yeah. So yeah, it's that in itself is a big debate in the UK, and
yeah, I've heard. I know it, but I've never had it.
It's awesome, yeah.
I think my mic is picking you up a bit sometimes. Just to be, let's go.
Okay, yeah. We'll maybe we'll take a quick stop and we'll just check. I'll be so yeah. We'll just quickly pause there and we'll be right back to see if you guys are having to put up with an echo. Cool, we're back. Just had to quickly check some technical things. So yeah. So as I was saying, Doug Polk, bit of a Marmite character in the poker community. Before this kind of whole sort of situation, and I think the reason for that is he's not particularly subtle with his opinions. So he basically, if he thinks he's right about something, he won't let it go, which I can relate to as a character, right?
I can relate to, but I've learned that sometimes it's just better to let go because you win nothing out of it. Yeah,
100%. And it's one of my, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's one of my greatest characteristics. I'm one of those people. Well, if I have an argument with someone and I know that I'm right or think I'm right, but in my head know I'm right, I'll often be in the wrong and I won't let it go. The difference is, I don't do this on a public stage with a couple of million subscribers or whatever.
And usually the thing is, I'll take the bigger road kind of thing. What's the larger road? What's how you say it? But I'll usually be the higher road. Yeah. I'll usually just be like, we disagree on something. You're like, no, what is this? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's like I won't be fucked to just like argue.
Definitely.
But if you're a dick about it, then it's like, okay, mate, now I'm gonna show you why you're wrong.
And I think for me, I'm a bit of the opposite, and like you said, that's probably why we get along so well. But when I am, if I tell you black is white and you know black is black, and I'm wrong, you might be like, whatever, like he's wrong, but let that go. And when I then realise I'm wrong and black is black and not white, I'm always the first to hold my hands up and go, oh fuck, I'm so. Case in point, we had a not an argument, we had a conversation many years back about Mexico being Central America or North America.
Imagine you arguing with a Mexican where Mexico is located.
Yeah, but imagine, the thing was, it was like we had a few beers, we ran a thing, and I can't remember how it came up. But it was something about me saying that, oh yeah, Mexico is Central America, and I think a lot of ignorant Brits or Europeans.
A lot of people here think so.
Yeah.
Or South America.
I think we were taught it was Central America, and I blame the educational system. Yeah, so but and you saying actually it's North America. I was like, no, it's Central America. And I remember it sounds stupid even to this point, right? So as you say, argue with a Mexican over where their country's located, and then I can't remember how we got into it. And the fact was like you didn't really argue. You were like, okay, let me sort of have it. And to the point where I googled it, I was like, oh my god, you're right. It's North America. Like, of course I'm fucking right. And I was like, I was almost annoyed. Like, why did you not let me? Like, I can be fucked, man. I was like, so yeah. But I'm the first to hold my hands up when I'm wrong, right? So. And
as it should be.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's not very common nowadays.
Definitely. You can't have really like intense opinions, or you can't be quite confrontational and then not admit when you're wrong, because that's just stupid, right? The whole point of having strong opinions and having big conversations is to be able to learn and to be able to educate yourself when you're wrong, right?
Exactly, yes.
So Doug has a lot of these opinions, and quite a lot of them are fair and reasonable. And this was the kind of debate where they're saying that, let's say you put out 2,000 videos, and let's say 1,960 of them are valid, but 40 of them are wrong. You've got a huge platform, and you are causing harm in those 40 cases where you're wrong, and it should be rectified. It should be apologized. It should be made right. But so what happened was Doug went onto a Twitter space with another poker player who he's, like I say, not a very Marmite character, and a guy that he knows, Matt Berkey, I think, and they hate each other. It's another poker player, hate each other, and there's no secret of that. And Matt Berkey, I think, has a podcast, like a poker podcast. I think it's called like Only Friends, which I think is a massively cringe name, by the way, but is what it is, right? Tell me I'm wrong, though. Come on.
Oh, it is.
Right. So Only Friends, I'm promoting his podcast to all my millions of viewers, but that's fine. And he's got this, and Doug basically called him out to sort of say we should do a podcast, as in him, because they hate each other, and we should debate these really and it would be entertaining.
And that kind of drama gets people in.
People would love it for sure, right? And they were having a space to he'd reached out to Berkey to say we should do the podcast. And he'd basically said, not interested, I can't fucking stand you, which I respect, don't get me wrong. But Doug had sort of gone on there to sort of have a debate of like why he thinks it would be a good idea. And Doug sort of got, in my opinion, this conversation ended up being about 4 a.m. US time. And like I say, I'm not like a massive Doug Polk fan or anything like that. I just like to give fairness where it is, right? Like I like to be fair everywhere, sort of thing. And it was really late. You could tell he was tired. Charlie Carroll jumped onto the space and decided he would like to jump on and have a chat. Very prepared, and basically sort of destroyed Doug over this whole 5 years ago. You put out a piece basically calling me a paedophile is what he sort of said, and that's caused me harm and like repercussions for 5 years, and I've been miserable, and I believe that it can have done, right, but it was a bit like, and he went really off on one, and Doug didn't defend himself particularly well, and he was, like you say, he was tired and all this whatever reasoning, but that's what it was. And the whole it then went out. The reason why you might be thinking at this point, well, why the hell did I even say the word sexually abused earlier? But Charlie openly admits on this call of probably about a few thousand people that he was sexually abused by his grandfather as a young child, right? So a really awful thing that he went through in his life. He said that his wife had similar, like issues in her past. She'd had similar traumas, and they've worked, they support each other through it. And he says to the point now where his words were like, we can even joke about it at times now. It's made us stronger, and good on him, right? Of course. But obviously Doug didn't know this, and that doesn't mean, that he's guilt-free. But to me, it was odd. It was like 5 years ago a video was launched, and then 5 years afterwards you've come back and sort of ambushed this guy for a video made 5 years ago, which was a little bit tongue-in-cheek over a topic of your tweet of, paedophiles should be shown empathy, it's the best way to deal with it, whatever it might be, which we've sort of established was a kind of controversial take to sort of have for a bit of engagement.
Out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Doesn't mean his take's wrong, but it's just, you've got to understand, as we've already said, there will be backlash to these kind of comments. And he basically just put out that he'd been getting a lot of hate in DMs and emails or whatever for years, people calling him like a paedophile sympathizer or a paedophile himself, all these kind of horrible things. But and it sort of brought out to the point where Doug ended up apologizing for it and saying, I'm really sorry about this. He removed the videos from 5 years ago and put out an extra apology in like a 20-second sort of piece saying, really sorry that any harm I've caused you in there, and basically trying sort of things like that. Which, as far as I was concerned, was kind of good enough. Which, to me, it's like, you've done a video based on the information you had at the time. Yes, you've used your platform potentially to sort of paint someone in a certain way, which could be argued as for sure like out of line. But he's apologized for it. He's removed the videos. I don't really see too much more he can do in that regard. And the mob of the poker community. The reason why I'm a bit passionate about this is poker's been such a big part of my life. I've been a professional poker player for 12 years, and to just see this mob almost with like pitchforks, like basically wanting Doug's head on a spike, it just sort of felt like
the problem with that is like because that relates a bit to the kind of topic I had in mind. It's not a topic; it just like completely relates to this. You actually reminded me of this. The problem is because in this talk they were telling something about I'm just sad that the current state of the poker community reflects the current state of the world, and it's like a micro kind of country of like the whole US and the world kind of thing. Where everyone is just like at everyone's throats and everyone's trying to look for someone who fucks up, and then you just pile on top of that person kind of thing. And I think that's not just poker, that's like every community, that's every the whole world right now is this, I'm just looking at who fucks up and then let's all pile on that person kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Where, mate, everyone fucks up.
100%.
Everyone, like, we were discussing this like earlier because I was telling you I was tilted that you cannot be that person that thinks, I have the high morality, I have all the truth kind of thing. Because someone will come, and if you are up there, kind of like, look at me, I'm better than you. Especially, I'm the kind of person that's like, you think you're better than me? I'll find something that you are not, that contradicts your whole ideology kind of thing. Because we all have contradictions, like it or not, everything, right? If you're like whatever kind of thing of like, I'm like this, like in Mexico right now, the thing I had in mind was this like people who use bikes and people who drive.
Right.
And it's this completely, we're two opposites and we're completely different. It's like, no, there's idiots on both sides, mate. Complete idiots in both sides. You cannot think that one thing you do makes you better than others. It's just not a reality. Like, it's completely, it's mental for me how someone can be like, but I do this one thing, I'm better than you.
It's definitely.
Like, no, bro. Like, it definitely is not.
And definitely, I totally agree. And like, I want to talk more about like non-specific examples, like you said, like in Mexico and just general cancel culture as well. I'd just like to sort of briefly, sort of maybe finish up on this sort of particular poker topic. Was just that when I said like, it kind of made me feel like I say I don't like Doug Polk. I don't hate the guy, but I don't know him. I think his videos are quite amusing. I think he's pretty witty, quite funny. Not as funny as he thinks he is, but he's a good lad generally, right? And I've enjoyed his content over the years, as many people of the poker community have, right? Here was my issue, right? My issue was nobody has said a fucking word about this video for 5 years, right? Nobody. No one thought it was wrong until Charlie came on and basically opened up this huge, like, can of worms of like, you don't know about my past. Here's all the traumas I've been through. Here's all the horrible things that have happened to me. And no one, myself included, is anywhere near disputing any of that. The issue is, Doug is like, fuck, I'm sorry, bro. And I know that there's going to be some people instantly jumping that on the call. Doug's first reaction wasn't, shit, I'm really sorry. Doug took the approach, which was too logical. He took the approach of, even if you've been sexually abused in your past, that doesn't mean your tweet wasn't stupid and wrong. Which I think you can have the opinion, no matter what's happened to you, doesn't mean I can't critique a tweet you made, which I agree with totally. The point was everybody sort of jumped at him like, you're this monster. This guy's just opened up on his past, and you're just saying, yeah, but logically you're still wrong. My argument there is, like it or not, Doug's entitled to do that, right? He's allowed to go, yeah, well, your tweet's still stupid. Like, that's why we're allowed freedom of speech and opinion.
To be fair, mate, like, if I'm in his position and the other person, you said they don't like, and this guy was like, oh, I don't want to do anything with you because I can't stand you. If someone I cannot stand comes to me and opens to me like, oh, I have this bad experience in my life.
It's a slight different guy. It's a different guy, but it was a different guy on the tweet, but this guy sort of ambushed the spaces, but also they have like a bad history.
But my whole point is like, if you have a history of like, I don't like this person, and you are having like issues and stuff, and you cannot stand that person, it's like, for me, it's very hard to be empathetic with people I don't know.
Yep.
And of course I feel bad when something bad happens and stuff, and something bad happens in Mexico and here in Finland and whatever, when they're like, oh, this thing happened in the middle of nowhere. Of course you feel like, oh, that shouldn't happen. But I couldn't care less.
And I guess,
like, realistically, I don't feel it as some people kind of, maybe some people do, but for me it's crazy that people get so fucking...
And that's that. Like, my issue is almost like, that is the whole issue for me, right? Is that you're allowed to feel how you feel about the topic. I'm allowed to feel how I feel. Everyone's allowed to have their opinion on it, right? And it's not fair to call this... you can think this guy's a monster. I'm allowed to go, I think this guy's a fucking monster, right? That's my opinion. And I don't want to... I'm not trying to say here that I disagree with Charlie and agree with Doug, because that's not the case here. Yeah. My issue is more with like the mob mentality of, let's cancel this guy because he's a monster and he only thinks about dollar signs. Well, he's allowed to think about dollar signs. Everyone's entitled to, as long as he's not harming other people. That's the issue. And then you can say, well, he is. He's harmed Charlie. Well, he's apologized and he's removed the videos and he's publicly apologized. And there's not really much else he can do, in my opinion, about that, right? But they're trying to say he needs to basically change his ways and how he is and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I just felt like there was, as I said, I don't really like the guy in the sense I've got no reason to like Doug. I just felt a little bit like no one's had a problem with what this dude's, but like publicly, no one's made big issues about what this guy's been doing for years, making videos, using content. A couple of other examples I could go into at some point where he's called people scammers and it's been his opinion, or sometimes it's been fact or whatever they have. And either way, but people have said you've painted this guy in a bad light and called them scammers. And I think, but there's certain and they brought this up on the pod. They said, well, in the X, Y, and Z example, where this guy definitely was a scammer, that was fine. But in like ABC version, we're not sure he was a scammer, so you're kind of like, you're slandering them, and it's like, well, it's like, where is the, like, the guy's just got an opinion. I think this guy's a scammer. I think this is a scammer. This is why he's giving his opinion. And you're like saying, well, you can say it about this guy because I think he is a scammer, but you can't say it about this guy because I don't think he is. Well, it's like, I don't know. It was just one of those where I don't want to get too off topic with that, but I just felt like it was kind of only once the mob had bust open the door, everyone was trying to jump on with, this guy's a monster kind of thing. And I just thought,
for me, that mob mentality is the part that I don't understand.
And I think that's cancel culture itself, right? It's like,
but this cancel culture is like, because I've seen that kind of thing. Like, I'm not really up to date with a lot of these topics because like sometimes I don't follow the news for many other, like.
Well, it's depressing,
things.
Right? So it's like,
I stopped watching Mexican news because like, I just see sometimes when I open Twitter, like, and which is not as often anymore. But
wise man.
But this mob mentality is insane, because the mob mentality is like, we're all good, we're all better than you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now let's like lapidate this guy, kind of thing, right? And it's like, that's how we behaved before, like many years back when we didn't know better, right?
Yep.
And now we're going back digitally, if you will.
Yeah.
But we're going back to this fucking crazy mentality of like, dude, we've advanced so much as a society, and now it feels like we're regressing to this kind of like, to this point before, like, just behaving like animals of like, oh, that guy's wrong, let's like stone him to death, kind of thing. Like, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
For me, it's crazy to understand how people believe this kind of thing is right. And I'm not saying that this cancel culture is completely wrong. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of like, you should point them out. You should point, hey, dude, this is wrong.
Yeah, of course.
This you cannot allow, kind of thing. But I follow this. I follow this girl. She's like trans, and she has a show on YouTube. It's in Spanish, but Ofelia Pastrana.
Okay.
I met her before, like she transitioned and stuff, and she's a really smart person. This is like, I think, physicist,
Okay.
and
Sounds
also
smart,
like
yeah.
a master with like marketing and this economy or something like that. Like extremely smart. She has a show where she explains stuff like digital like world and technology and like a bit of sociology. Like she explains a lot of how people think and stuff. And she has a phrase that I think it's spot on, where she says, I heard it like a few months ago, that we should not have a like it shouldn't be a cancel culture, but it should be a consequence culture.
Yep.
Where if you do something, there's a consequence, and you should face that consequence, like 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
If you fuck up, you should have a consequence.
Of course.
But this cancel culture of like, hey, let's just like throw rocks at that person kind of thing, because that's what digitally is happening.
Yeah.
That's the part that doesn't make sense. It should be like, if you fucked up, you harm someone, you caused harm to others, kind of thing. You should have a consequence.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. And I think some people would argue in this particular case with Doug, for example, they would argue, well, he has fucked up and he has harmed. Like, there was 3 examples they gave. There was one guy that they thought was angle shooting, where basically, without going into the boring details, in poker, when you have your stack in a live game, you're supposed to have you have different chip denominations, right? So you could have like $10 chips, you could have $50 chips, you can have $1,000 chips, right? And you're supposed to keep your big chips, your highest denomination chips, at the front of your stack for obvious reasons, so that everyone can see around the table how much money you've got on the table before they make their decision. If I have a stack of 10 $5 chips, so $50, and I have $1 million chip behind that hidden, that's very misleading, right?
Yeah.
Because you might go, oh, he's only got $50 left, I'm all in, and you've got 200k, and I go, cool, and you're fucked, right? So that's the sort of the premise. You have to keep your chips visible, your big chips visible. This guy didn't. He hid him around the back, and it was a controversial video where Doug said he thought he was angling, so trying to get an edge by sort of misrepresenting stack. It was a big video on it. It was an interesting topic, and again, Doug was entitled to his opinion, in my opinion, on that topic. And people have called him out for that. And then, so it's one of these things where Doug will stand by his opinion there, right? So if people say, yeah, but you did this video, and people think I'm a cheater, and people think this, and people think that, and like therefore you should be cancelled for it. It's like, well, you did do what you did, right? And you didn't. Maybe you addressed it. Maybe you didn't address it in the correct way. Whatever it might be. It's like this is one of my kind of, this is where I'm not so strong on. It's like, I'm a very firm believer in freedom of speech, and I think we should be able to say, as I said to you when I said, I don't like the idea that YouTube could say, well, you can't say these words. It's like, well, why not? I need to talk about this issue, and it's important to be able to verbalize what I'm talking about. But there is definitely a case for if you have a huge platform and you can do harm with your words, right? That there has to become that's where
because we have this mob mentality, and that's not a thing that I believe. That's a thing that you can see, right? It's happening.
And it works both ways.
You should be very careful what you say.
Be careful of the Mexicans because they're, horrible people, and I've got 20 million followers. Some of those followers will go, oh, well, okay, I'll be, and
that's what happened with Trump.
Exactly.
He won, and he immediately you started getting more this like
full disclosure. I don't have any problem with the Mexicans.
Racial, I don't know, mate. I've seen some
just
stuff.
This one guy,
No, but like that's what happened with Trump, right? He won. He was openly racist, openly this kind of like berating everyone. As soon as he won,
he has the biggest platform in the world.
Yeah, he has a massive platform, and then suddenly you have people on the street saying stuff like, "Oh, now we can be like this because Trump said so," right?
Yeah.
And there's no more clear.
So it's dangerous for sure. Yeah.
There's not a more clear like example than that, right? That immediately happened, and you have people openly saying these things. So of course, if you have a big, and it doesn't even have to be that big of a platform, right?
No,
if you have a platform of 10,000 people, that's already a lot of people, and
a
you
lot
can
of
still
hate can be spread there, right?
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because those hate comments are usually the loudest.
Yep, exactly. People with an impartial or no opinion aren't very loud, right? It's like if I say, well, what do you think about, I don't know, transgender athletes? If you don't really have an opinion on it, you're going to be like, well, I don't know. You're going to just not really say much, right? If you're strongly for or strongly against, you're going to be loud, and that's the way of life, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, when you give when somebody has a strong opinion, and that's sort of what I was discussing with another friend. I said, I've got, this platform we have is tiny, it's minuscule, right? We have 24 or so subscribers, which we were very grateful for, and
best 24 subscribers
exactly,
ever.
and growing rapidly, because of the god tier content we're putting out. But at the same time, there's one that is I think a thought provoking thing where there's a world, let's just say a dream world at that, but a world where let's say we have 1 million subscribers in a year's time, and we've made a video talking about something in particular. That's the thing. You put things out on the internet, and they're kind of there, right? And that's what I think a lot of people's point was for Doug, was just that, you do have a huge platform. People do listen to what you say. People do tend to agree with your opinion. But some could argue, in a truly free speech world, is it his fault if you say something and people believe everything you say, and he's still entitled to his opinion. And I don't want to sort of dwell too much on this, but other than the fact that the one last issue I had with the whole topic, from a kind of like conceptually, if you will, was that there were certain things that when somebody made, I think, for example, Doug said that somebody wrote an article about him, and he said, well, I think his intentions behind it was one of Doug's biggest business competitors, a guy called Phil Galfond, who is known as like the nicest and most honest guy in poker, and I believe him to be so. He's an awesome dude, got a lot of time for him, like everyone speaks highly of him. He runs one of the biggest coaching poker sites, and it's a rival of Doug's. And Doug put out, understandably, when you're being attacked, right, you're going to have these kind of, well, the reason he does that is because he can steal business from me if I'm shamed, let's say. I don't believe that was Phil's sort of angle, but I understand why Doug would say that, right? And everyone would just say, yeah, you're projecting these things, you're projecting X, Y, Z, which is fair. But then when somebody else would say, why did Doug make these videos? Well, he did it for money, right? He did it for business, he did it for X, Y, Z, he did it for entertainment, for whatever reasons. And people would say, no, I think he did it because he's a genuinely cruel and unstable mentally person. And it's like, well, now you're fucking projecting, right? Like, how is it fair for you, for when Doug says, I think you did this for X, Y, Z, you go, no, you're projecting, that's not fair. Like, and then you say you're a cruel and like malicious individual, which is a pretty fucking sweeping statement, right? To call someone, that's not it's projection. I just didn't like the fact that it didn't feel like it was like level terms, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, even.
But I love the answer.
At the end, I remember there was another thing I find hilarious is when someone says, "With all due respect," and then follows it with a comment that is like, "Couldn't be less respectful if it tried." Right? I think the quote was,
"Whatever you say." It doesn't matter, because you always hear this. I'm not racist.
No offense, but I'm not racist.
Whatever you say before the but doesn't count. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't count. You know something exactly what you said is gonna come like the opposite way, right?
And that was on the first space, the previous one. Charlie said something to Doug, and Doug makes a bit of humor out of it. Charlie said something along the lines of, "With all due respect, I think you're a fucking piece of shit." Not a quote. So let's just say that as an argument. And Doug just laughed and went, "Oh well, thank you for saying all due respect," kind of thing. And then Charlie went, "No, you're right. No fucking respect. I think you're an arsehole." And it's like, but then why are you trying on this moral high ground of pretending you're being virtuous with all respect?
Moral high ground. That's what's now a thing, right? Everyone's better than everyone. I'm gonna tell you what I think you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong. Then it's because you are not as good as me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's insane, man. Because everyone's so different that you cannot do that. Because also, whatever you do, you are thinking you're the best kind of person. Like, oh, I'm so good. I'm helping everyone. And there's one thing you do that's harming others. It doesn't matter what you like. You could be the best person in the world. There's something that indirectly is damaging, kind of thing.
Yeah,
if you start applying this like kind of logic that sometimes you get, it's like someone will find something you are doing that could be better.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Definitely. 100% agree. And that was I think there was a sort of a topic. Someone tried to make that topic, that sort of discussion on the space, and then when somebody had the opinion, before I get into this next bit, when someone had the opinion to Charlie at the end, where he said, I think you're kind of attention seeking a little bit with this like kind of thing, and when he said his comment was, with all due respect, you can go and eat a massive fat bag of dicks.
It killed me, bro.
And it was, don't get me wrong, it was fucking hilarious. But like, it's like this topic on this discussion on Twitter shouldn't have been hilarious, right? It's like we found it hilarious, but it's like, can you not fucking see like the almost the irony of your comment? It's like,
Mate, also, a completely unrelated topic.
yeah,
But I was listening to the space because you sent it to me, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
these are a bunch of poker players. In my opinion, I thought everyone was a poker player. And then everyone's like, no, yeah, because this is a situation and the poker community, which I've always found weird that people talk about this, like the poker community and these communities. Like, bro, having the same interests doesn't make you kind of like, it's a community in the sense that you kind of see each other and you hear each other.
yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're going to like each other.
Hell no.
That's just
Hell no. But it is a
you
community
you
in the sense of it's like a bubble, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone within, and that's the problem. You're right. We don't like each
But
other.
that is not a
But
community,
you are like
bro.
a little. You're an online village where you all work in this little poker bubble, and that's why there's all this drama because everyone's got. And poker players are assholes at the best times. So it's like when you put them all together and you give
But
them
especially in
opinions,
poker, for me, it's because for me a community is like we're all working for the better good kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Of everyone. Does that happen in poker?
hell no.
Exactly.
But you could argue, devil's advocate, that the poker community are all working together for the best for poker going forward. So
to keep people going into poker and giving you their money.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and that's one of the things that was the point I was going to get to is the next point when I said after the bag of dicks thing was like when it's like they all have this like I like to think I'm a pretty good person generally, as everyone does, right? Everyone likes to think they're a good person, and morally I think I'm pretty good moral compass, pretty ethical person.
No.
But as you said before,
Fair. I would say I'm fair.
yeah, we could all be better, right? And
100%.
we could all be a damn sight worse. So, but the point is,
Way worse.
and it's one of those things where, so I sleep pretty well at night with how I treat people, right? And the point is, but when these people come onto this space and they've got this like virtuous, like just drilling this guy like Doug about he's like, whatever their opinion on, he's calling him a monster. It was like, you're insane if you think that's a monster. But either way, that's my opinion. Each to their own. Aside from that, it's like you play poker for a living, right? Your entire career is based off destroying someone for their cash. Like put it how you want. I've done this for 12 years of my life, right? And I'm proud of it, right? Like in terms of, but
because I've destroyed many people.
yeah, like because it's all fair games, right? You're playing someone for
You're
cash.
choosing
Everyone
to play
knows
me.
the rule. You're choosing to play me. If I lose my house to you, that's on me. If you lose your house to me, so be it.
100%.
But would my parents prefer I was a doctor? Probably, right? It's like in terms of like what you add to the world. Poker players, I've been a poker player, like I say, 12 years. We add no value to the world.
And this is my problem because we had this discussion not long ago.
Yeah.
And because one of the guys came there, and that is my problem. That I got tilted by listening to this because a lot of those guys were I'm better than you kind of. They had the I'm better than you kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
And one guy walks in, starts like, okay, I want to say something, right?
Help yourself.
And he started talking about being a good person, right? And this is my problem. Like you're telling me you are, because you're kind of praising yourself. Oh, I'm the best person, and yeah, I'm so good. I do this and do that. And then he goes on to say like, I feel like as a poker community, we should care about the world and about the community and about the people, and we should try to make the world a better place. It's like, you play poker for a living, man.
I mean, it's exactly what you said.
You cannot be on a moral high ground of like I'm better than everyone else. And it's like yeah, but you're playing poker for a living.
It's like, where's the line? If you can be a drug dealer and have these same moral.
Know what I mean?
It's like
it's kind of like you cannot tell other, oh, you're doing something wrong. You are not improving the world, dude. Neither are you.
No,
like realistically, right?
100%.
It's like it's what we were talking about. It's like I'm a programmer.
Yeah.
And I think my work is also kind of on the line. Like I'm not improving the world, man.
I mean, you could. I think you are.
It depends on what project you work.
True.
I don't think I am.
It can be for good or evil, right?
But I, like no, and I think I do. The projects I'm working on currently, I'm giving a service for people, and of course, I'm making some people's life easier.
Yep.
But realistically, I'm not improving the world in any way. Like for the common good of like let's preserve the world and the spirit.
Yeah.
You are not doing anything, man. And that's why I would never go on a higher ground of like, oh, I'm better than you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Based on like, it just makes no sense, man.
And you can definitely make the argument, right, that regardless of what you do for a career, right, you can take our opinions of poker as a living and say it's not particularly virtuous, right? And the counterpoint argument to that would be, well, it doesn't matter what I do for a living. I believe Doug's statements XYZ were malicious and morally like horrible, right? Which is fine. You can have that opinion. So they can say, well, it doesn't matter if I'm like I say, it doesn't matter if they're a drug dealer 100%. For a living. They can do that,
but if you're
when you're taking the stance of trying to make the world a better place,
when you're like you are not making the world better, mate. You are a problem. It's like, well, what are you doing? You know what I mean? That's the stance that now everyone has this stance of I'm better than you, and you can see it in social networks and like social media and whatever, and it's a common like just pointing out, oh, you're wrong, mate.
Make yourself feel better by you being
100%.
Yeah. And another point I just want to mention is, which I think just before I lose it, is the other point was like people do this whole like I'm trying to make the world a better place, and sort of lost my point, which was basically that it's easy to be that was it. Sorry, I've got it. They said one of the arguments they made was that Doug, you only see the world in dollar signs. You see everything as a dollar value in EV, which is expected value for those of you that don't know. Which is basically like what you will gain from a certain action. Let's just say so. Like, is it a net positive return for your efforts or your decision or whatever it might be? And so they'll say the problem is you see this video of this person's, let's say, trouble in life or this situation, whatever it might be, and if you think you can make dollars out of it, you'll exploit it, right? Which is a reasonable opinion to have, but what I don't like is this is coming from some poker players that are being incredibly virtuous about it, when it's like, you've made your money now. These are guys like Justin Bonomo, like Berkey, they're multi-millionaires, right? They've made their money. Tell me when you were like mid-stakes player that you weren't playing for dollar signs in EV. Like all the decisions they made, and I could be wrong, they were like, you're wrong, and I am making an assumption and projection, but so fucking be it, right? As in,
and also
it's easy to be virtuous when when you're on top, right? And you could argue with Doug's on top, so that is their point. They're picking off a guy from the top, but it just seems like this kind of it's not really necessarily, in my opinion, fair to judge someone for having their opinions, especially when they do get, and when the whole, to go back to an original topic point, of, well, if he does 2,000 videos and 1,960 are fine and 40 are wrong. Sometimes you do get it wrong. Sometimes news reporters report misinformed news. Yeah. And if you do make it right, if you do apologize in a public setting, apologize to Charlie, apologize to the community about Charlie. I was wrong. This was completely wrong of me. It's one of those where it was like, I feel like that should have been issue settled, right? But it hasn't been. And they've said, sorry, I want to let you go, but
go.
He said, Charlie then came out and said, I'll sort of accept your apology and blah, blah, blah. But I think you need to do more than that, not just a 20-second scripted apology. You need to do this, and this. It was almost like demands. It was like, you need to apologize to this person for this person for this, and this person for this. And I don't think it's Charlie's job to speak on their behalf.
Apologize to you, kind of thing.
If the other guy, Jay Nandez, who had a problem with Doug and they went to court, comes and says, I think I would like an apology, then Doug probably would.
You can choose to accept apology.
Yeah.
But that's completely up to you, man.
Exactly.
Here's another thing, like, this is more of a, I have a question, right? And I've seen people talk about this, and I don't know exactly where do you draw the line. Where, for example, you have these kind of cases, right? I don't know, Louis C.K. He got cancelled, and it's like reasonably so, right? I mean, I do believe like
recently. What? Sorry,
reasonably so.
Yeah.
Like he got,
for
like
sure.
I think, it's like a power kind of like move on these kind of things. I understand why he got cancelled. I understand why he did this wrong.
Yep, yeah, for sure.
100%.
Yep.
Like, it is. So that there's no question there, right? And now he was coming back, right? He was trying to make some things.
For what it's worth, I know of the Louis C.K. situation vaguely, but I don't know the specifics of what he did. I know it's something to do with
I think
exposure or...
No, basically, he would ask, I think, openers and people who are working with him, kind of thing, like
sort of sexual exploitation.
Yeah, like no people that are basically working for him, or like an opener, for example.
Right.
Yeah, like a female opener. Hey, you want to open my show? Yes. Hey, like they're at their kind of like what's like the room where you wait before the show.
Green room. Yeah.
And then he would ask politely, "You mind if I wank in front of you?" Kind of thing.
I remember that.
Like,
right. Yeah, that was
mate,
good.
Of course, no one said no, because like, bro, if I say no, I'm not gonna get this shit.
The error I've made there is I've confused Louis C.K. then with Bill Burr. Like for a minute, I was like, Bill Burr's got a what? But he did nothing wrong. Bill Burr's. Right. Bill Burr's done nothing wrong.
I'm bad with names, but no, it was Louis.
Bill Burr. Because I'm thinking, but Bill Burr's got a wife. I'm thinking,
No.
Yeah, Louis. Now I remember. Louis C.K. was the guy.
And he was cancelled, right?
Yeah.
And then at some point, I think he was trying to come back. I don't know if nowadays he's doing something.
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan, and he sort of
Just because I couldn't think of any other kind of like.
Sure.
But for example, this guy, right? And now he's trying to come back. This thing was years ago, right? And he has apologized. I was like, okay, I kind of understand. And there's many cases of this, right? That you would see like, oh, this guy tweeted 10 years ago this. He's a fucking monster. We should cancel him.
Yeah.
It's like, I did very stupid things 10 years ago, right? And now I know way better. And now I've learned so much. I've grown so much in the last few years. And I'm a completely different person. I think I'm a way better person than I was like a year ago. Not to say like 15 years ago, right? When do you draw the line? Because there's people who are like, this guy's a monster, we should cancel him for life kind of thing. But what if you grow and you're like, man, I fucked up. Maybe I was wrong. You grow as a person, you understand, you go and apologize to the person. Hey, man, I fucked up. I really affected you. I'm really sorry. Man, I fucked up. I don't know what to say. You know, like now I've grown. I realize what I did was wrong. I completely understand it. I'm really sorry.
Yep. That wouldn't be good enough in a lot of people's eyes.
But that's not good enough in a lot of people's eyes.
That's it,
and you're like, okay, but this is something that happened 10 years ago. This person now knows better. He got punished. He lost a lot of joy. Maybe he went to jail kind of thing, goes out.
And everyone makes mistakes.
And it's still wrong. Yeah. And a lot of people, like this mob mentality is like, no, but he fucked up. I was like, dude, but he already paid. And even with people that go to jail, you see it, right? Someone goes to jail, gets locked up. There's people who do change, right? They're like, nah, I fucked up. I don't want to go back. I'm going to be a better person. And still have problems with that.
Yep.
Because they're like, for society, you're like a criminal, and that's that.
You're tarnished for life, and that's that.
Yeah. And this kind of like mentality is like, where do you draw the line then? Because maybe you can have this cancel culture. Of course, I understand where it's coming from and whatever.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But when people do horrendous things.
But then where do you draw the line of like, isn't the point for people to grow and learn and be better? And if they do, it's still not enough. Then what's the point of the like it's you fuck up once and then you're completely cancelled for life?
I agree, and I think it sort of goes back to kind of like this whole my biggest issue with the whole scenario, right, is that within the particular example, like with the Doug Polk thing, right, is that I'm reiterating my point that like where were all these people? The video's been live for 5 years, right? No one had an issue with it until, well, you know, and some people say they did. That's fine, but what I'm trying to say is, this guy's getting like hung out to dry here, like, you know, proper like getting cancelled for a video he made 5 years ago against a guy that he had beef with, you know, for right or wrong. They both were, you know, as bad as each other in some regards, right? Maybe not so equally, but they both played a part in their disagreements. And he's now getting like, you know, like dragged through the street because the guy's come out with it, you know, with his horrible past. And I feel like people are just virtue signaling a little bit like, oh, yeah, you're a monster because Doug Doug just did like insensitively respond, probably defensively. And you can't really judge him when you're not in his shoes, right? If I have an argument with you and then you come out and you say something, you like trump me with like, yeah, but this really horrible thing happened to me. And I feel like a complete arsehole, like, oh, fuck, like now I look like a dick, right? Because I'm, you know, a really traumatic thing. There's a world where somebody just defends themselves like, yeah, but your tweet was still shit.
But,
you know, like,
but what if you don't feel bad?
Yeah, exactly. And that's
here's my point, right?
Yeah.
You say something bad to me,
and
I tell you like, yeah, but I went through this.
But you're still an arsehole.
Because I've gone through this kind of like thing that someone tells you, yeah, but you had it easy. I went through this. Oh, me too. Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You get this kind of like, what if I don't care?
Yeah.
Isn't it also my right not to feel the same as you?
100%. And I think that, and I totally agree with you. And I think,
of course, it's awful that you went through that.
Yeah.
But it's not my problem, mate.
Definitely. And the argument, I think that's sort of, Doug was never saying that he didn't care about the situation that happened to Charlie. What he was trying to say was, that's all well and good, and I'm really sorry for that. But my issue was that was a silly I disagree with your tweet and I wanted to make a video about it, right? And their argument is, yes, but that video you've made, because it was insinuated allegedly that Doug had called Charlie a paedophile, right? And this is, I think you can interpret things as you like, but in his video he does like I want to use the quote comedy because some people might find it funny, some people do, right? But he said about the tweet, he said, he made a little tongue-in-cheek thing, in my opinion, my take on the situation. A bit was tongue-in-cheek, like, long time ago, 5-year video, not seen it, and it's taken down, right? So take it with a pinch of salt. But he basically said something along the lines of, it says, you know the kind of, people, who would want to show empathy to pedophiles, and he sort of looks at the camera and goes, pedophiles, and insinuating, right? It's a bit of joke. I mean, don't get me wrong. I can understand fully why not all people will find that funny. But
it is a bit aggressive.
Yeah, of course, massively so, right? But it's like, I at least believe that was not actually suggesting that guy is a pedophile, right?
Yeah.
And then, but no matter what I believe, my belief is irrelevant there. Charlie was saying that has caused me severe amounts of hate and anxiety, which is absolutely reasonable, right? And it's good that he called Doug out and go, look, you've made a horrible period of my life for 5 years, and I want to basically call you out for it. Doug apologized for that, right? But he apologized so shitty. That was kind of the problem, I think, which people had the issue with. But in the end, he did, and I say, if you want to give people credit for it, give them a what's the word? Give them a bit of leniency. It's 5 a.m. He felt attacked. It was off, random sort of assault on like a discussion, and he 100% handled it pretty damn terribly. The point is, he shouldn't be like dragged through the street for it, in my opinion.
Now here's the point, and this is where, because I'm that kind of person, right? That I'm like, I know what people expect sometimes, and just for the sake of not having an argument, I'll be like, what do you want? Like, oh, I want to apologize, mate. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Fuck off. Even if I don't feel it, I'll be like, oh, man, let's just end this because I couldn't care less. There you go, mate. Go away. Having said that, when you have I was telling about like consequences.
Yeah.
Even before all this kind of thing, if you would have shown me that tweet, I can tell you that's gonna cause you a problem.
100%, yeah.
Without even not even like, hey mate, I think you're a pedophile or whatever. Like, no, I just seeing that tweet, you're gonna put this out. You have a massive follower like base. A lot of people are looking what you tweet. That's gonna be a problem, mate.
Yeah.
And you should be.
Even
you're
if it's
smart.
right, even if that's the
even
thing.
If it's
even
right.
if you're, because he came to defend that point where he said lots of professionals in that world have said that empathy is the thing, right?
Just like what I did, right? It's like, if you have empathy, you can understand where it comes from and
100%.
stuff. It doesn't mean you agree.
But a lot of
you
people
have to
reading
understand
your tweet are going to be morons as well, right? So it's like you need to think about your audience, and that you can't just say controversial things and not expect.
And also, people don't read properly.
Yep.
I was reading in the other day, again, one of these persons that I don't know who she is. It just popped on my feed, but it was she was a woman, and she was posting this kind of like tweets that you could tell she wanted people to be outraged. Right. And what she said, I think she's Spanish, and what she said was, I think it was one of those tweets like, tell an unpopular opinion.
Okay.
And then she retweeted and added, I think having sex between like family members kind of thing should not be a problem as long as everyone is an adult and a consenting adult.
Right, okay.
Very, very,
very
unpopular opinion, ain't it? Yeah. Like, cause for me, that's just weird. I mean,
yeah,
it's like,
of course.
Just for me, it's like,
that's a hot take, Rene.
I completely disagree, right? I completely disagree because it's like, dude, what are you doing, mate? Having said that, she said, if you're an adult, consenting adult, you have no problems, you are not drunk, you are not anything, you're both adults, and you both consent.
Yeah. You're not harming anyone else, are you? Yeah, fair enough.
Which, in that sense, I agree. Yeah. Like, we've talked about this, that I agree that if you're both consenting or if you're like an adult, you should take your decisions. You could do whatever as long as you don't harm others. The comments on her tweet were like, yeah, but what about the kids and pedophiles and this? And so like, whoa. And here's where you get this like devil's advocate kind of thing, right? Because I completely disagree with that woman.
Yes.
Completely disagree.
And that's kind of where I am in this situation.
But people are attacking her about like these people like assaulting children and stuff. And you're like, but that's not what she said. That's not the
point here, exactly.
What she said is consenting adults that can decide and that are completely mentally like healthy and stuff. If they decide that, it's their problem.
Yeah.
But people just like attack on completely. I don't know if it's this kind of like projecting stuff, but all of the comments you could go through them and none made sense. It was like, that's not what she's saying. People would comment completely unrelated things of their beliefs and this. Like, but that's not what she's saying.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in Twitter a lot, that someone puts a tweet, especially in this kind of tweet,
Yeah.
and you immediately know people will misread that.
It's a
Or people will
firestarter,
misunderstand it, or people will believe whatever they want to believe. You should be smart enough that you know this is going to cause you problems, right? So if someone took that, made this kind of joke, caused you problems, yeah, he's an idiot. But you should have known, bro, that posting this kind of thing will bring consequences.
And I couldn't agree more, right? But the issue there is what we're discussing there. People would just say, well, you're victim blaming, right? Because they're saying he should be, freedom of speech wise, on our same argument, they say, should be able to do this. It's like, right, and I should be able to leave $10,000 cash in the street and nobody did it because it's mine, but I'd be an idiot if I did, right? And
But what I mean is, like, there's no one who's right here.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Like,
and I think you made a really good point when you said
I should be free to walk on the street, kind of thing. Same thing. But if I'm in Mexico, in my neighborhood where I grew up, where if you leave your car outside, they steal the tires, where they mock people outside all the time, where I used to walk around with brass knuckles and stuff, would I carry a Rolex and just like at 12 p.m. Well, just go for a walk outside?
Yeah, you should be allowed, but you won't.
Probably not, mate.
And
like,
100%. And to briefly sort of, I think you made a really good point when you said about with the woman who said, I think controversial take should be able to.
Very controversial.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments now. Just checking.
Clip. You're wrecked.
Yeah. But basically, I think that's how I feel very strongly with this scenario. That I don't agree or disagree particularly strongly. I don't. There's definitely both sides of this argument are right and wrong to it. I'm not even supporting Doug in the argument. I don't think that, like, I wouldn't make these videos like hating on, Charlie's tweets and stuff. I'm not that guy, but he does it. And my point is, people have been watching these videos for years and liking and subscribing and whatever, and no one's mentioned a fucking word about it. It's pretty much my argument that I've made a couple times now. Until this comes out, where they can be like suddenly it's virtual signaling from people that want to show support, and I think some of them are genuine for sure. But my point was more that it isn't the issue that I'm really fighting over. It was, for example, somebody just randomly, and I know this is probably just a random individual, I kind of commented on this on the spaces. One guy put, Doug's like the TMZ of poker, just throws shots everywhere, like basically saying like he just report like cheap shots everywhere. It's like, that's not a fucking crime. If you're a news outlet and you want to report on things that are like, factual, for example, that tweet did exist, and this is my interpretation. You can get into the debate over your platform and are you allowed to have these kind of opinions, and that's a different topic. But if you're just saying he said this, and then this is my opinion, but formulate your own, there's no crime being the TMZ of poker. You're allowed to do that. And the other one was,
I mean, you're kind of a cunt if you're anything like TMZ.
I agree, right? Like, I'll be honest, I don't. TMZ is just a news outlet, right? Like a really cheap news outlet.
TMZ. It's like the paparazzi ones that they just like harass people and just take pictures of everyone and like go and ask outrageous stuff.
Okay, but the point is, he's saying he's the TMZ of poker, which is, so firstly it's inaccurate, right? Because he doesn't do any of that. He doesn't harass people in the street. But I mean, maybe that's what you're saying. But either way. And someone said, "Oh yeah, like you're just trying to think of dollar signs," and like I said that again. I'm like, that's not a crime. He's allowed to think about his business, each to their own. Someone said about a corporate mindset on the thing. It's like, well, he's allowed to have a corporate mindset, each to their own. You're allowed to have these different ways or ideologies on how to approach life, right? Without getting too philosophical and deep. But the last bit I want to make on this sort of topic is they brought on a guy. Dankness3 is his Twitter. He's like, and I don't know the guy at all, but I generally found him funny, which was kind of a wake up call last night when I saw him in the tweet. He does these things called something like tough conversations, and it's really funny. He'll do like a selfie video about it's all very small in the poker community, and he'll go, like, time for a tough conversation with Rene. We need to talk about your slapping the table on the podcast.
I cannot help myself. I was triggered.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? So he'll do these kind of things that are kind of true. Like, okay, Rene keeps slapping the podcast, making the camera go, time for a tough shot. And it's just like a bit of banter, right? Good fun. He'll do it about lots of people in the poker community. And he came on yesterday to have this debate and this argument with Doug. But this was the one I fell asleep afterwards, right? And it really sort of tilted me because he sort of said, like, yeah, why is it that you called out, without getting into specifics for boring poker, he called out somebody for a certain thing. And then Doug said, yeah, he said, you called up this guy for doing this, something kind of people say a bit shady in poker, but you didn't call out this guy, a guy called Bryn Kenny, who Doug notoriously absolutely shredded in a video, because this guy, kind of an amusing story that I'll tell because it is quite funny. He was a poker guy, won millions of dollars, and started coaching and staking players. For those of you that don't know, just in case, staking is where you give players cash to play with and they give you a return. So like you basically employ them, right? And he demanded that this guy, he demanded these players did like yoga, ate like vegan, all these kind of weird sort of things that it made them do. And then he made this guy go to a shaman, right, and taste frog poison or something. It was like this weird kind of
frog that you lick.
Yeah, like a weird ritual. This guy was like, I'm not fucking. This whole came out of the story, and Doug notoriously rips this guy for it for ages. And when this Dankness dude came on and said, "Why you didn't say anything about Bryn and stuff?" and Doug was like, to be fair to him, was like, "Dude, what you're just misinformed. I did this, and without going off on a tangent." It was just really unprepared, and it felt like another example of somebody just jumping on the bandwagon of let me look virtuous and say you're bad for this,
Everyone's
and this,
outrageous,
and you don't even have your facts straight when you say, oh, but why didn't you do this? And it's like, dude, he did fucking do that. You're just misinformed. But yeah,
this is the problem. Like, I think that's the heart of the core of the issue, or many issues, where people like giving an opinion without knowing. I remember we were listening to this, and I just jumped in, and then there was one guy. I'm not a poker player, right? So I'm just like sitting there. I was like, oh, I'm gonna see what's this, because Luke wants to discuss this. Like, let's see what there is. And all I know from poker is like we've played a bit sometimes, and like I've played with some friends. I like it. I know the rules basically. I can play apparently okayish with the people who are like casuals and stuff. I'm okay. That's all I know, right? And well, from the things you've told, I know a bit about how the world is and everything. And then this guy jumps into this like Twitter space, starts talking. Yeah, the thing is like, when I was a kid, I remember when I was 5 and I read like I saw poker for the first time. I was like, bro, you're telling your life story. Come on.
He went on a life story.
And then he starts like, yeah, the thing about the poker community is this and that. Well, I don't play much because I'm broke.
Once a month.
Once a month, maybe. I was like, dude.
Yeah, it's
my
crazy.
Man, it's like me jumping in and giving an opinion.
You might as well jump in. I played with my friends down the pub one time and I won $10, so I'm qualified to discuss.
I might as well just jump in and be like, I don't play poker very often, but I'm smarter than that guy, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's like, what are you talking about?
When he even said, I play once a month, because I'm broke.
You're talking around professional poker players. But I don't play much, once a month, but here's my opinion. It's like, dude, what?
And like the elite of poker players as well, like a lot of them in there, that these are like big names, it was just like, it was.
And this is the problem, like, the fact that everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. You're allowed to have an opinion. But I don't know if we've discussed this, but the fact that you think your opinion on a topic is the same as someone who's it's as valid as that of someone who's an expert on the topic.
Not all opinions are equal.
It just doesn't make sense, man. It just doesn't make... Like, I'm not going to believe my opinion about poker, about whatever, like, a hand in poker, is as valid as yours.
Yeah.
That absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah.
Just as your opinion on a piece of code is not the same as mine.
Don't have
it
a
is
lot of
facts.
opinions on a piece of code.
It is facts, mate.
Yeah.
Like, because the fact that you are knowledgeable about something, of course, makes your opinion a bit more valid.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because a lot of people disagree with this.
I totally agree. It's like everyone's entitled to an opinion, as we've said, right, on most topics, but not all opinions are created equal in the sense of if I go up to some, like, I don't know, like the marine biologist and start saying, yeah, I actually think that. I mean, I guess we're sort of drifting into that could be fact if I go down that road, but there are certain things where if you go into somebody who's worked and has experience with, like, I don't know, news, like an editor, like a news editor, right? Weird example, but we'll go with it. And I start saying, yeah, I think the media is corrupt and censors people because blah 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 blah, and I've got an opinion on it, but I've read like a couple of articles on Twitter or whatever, and I think I know it all. And this person's got 25 years of career experience in the media and in newspaper. It's like, yeah, our opinions are not the same and not equal because I just don't have the level of insight, right? So,
and it could happen, for example, in the sense of like, but it should be a debate, not this, like, my opinion is better. Because if I show up, for example, with a friend who's a doctor, like, I was having these, like, issues with the nerve in the hand kind of thing, and hey, I have this. And he's like, well, I don't know. He's not an expert in that topic. He's a different kind of doctor. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. Have you searched into this and this and that? He starts searching, kind of thing. Oh, this. And he's like, oh, yeah, maybe it could be this and that, and you should do this. He's not an expert, but he has an idea.
Yep.
And I'm telling him, like, oh, I was researching this. He might be like, oh, yeah, that sounds right.
His opinion's still better than your mate down the pub.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And he's like, oh, that sounds about right. Or, oh, no, mate, I don't think that's the... Like, even though I researched, and I clearly am more updated than him in that specific topic at that moment, it doesn't mean that my opinion about medicine is... Because if he reads 5 minutes, he will know better because he knows at least the fucking body.
Again, he has the experience, exactly.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
And this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. You might know, or I might maybe switch his decision a bit, or the where he searched, or like, oh, you might be right. Let me search. Of course you can influence, and you could come up with something new. If I come in a hand here, like, oh, this. Oh, have you thought about this? Maybe you hadn't.
Yeah.
Maybe like I don't know.
There's a high probability that it's been thought of.
Yeah.
But there's a well, of course, you're entitled to an opinion. You're entitled to a
100%.
And there's these people that come on the spaces could have had.
But if you tell me, no, man, I've thought about it and it's wrong because of this.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Yep.
It is facts, and the facts are always more important than your opinion, mate.
Yeah, of course. And like you said before, even just the fact that like everyone is entitled to sort of recap on that. Everyone is entitled to opinion, but as we just said, like, they're clearly not equal opinions when you've got people that... I mean, as I said, it was just a bizarre thing. It was a bizarre thing when someone was like, well, I watched poker when I was... It was like almost a troll. It was like, you watched poker when you were 5 years old, and I play once a month because I'm broke. And it's like... And it was kind of an unnecessary thing to add, because like, this whole issue, I think, isn't a poker issue. It's a societal issue, right? This is like is it okay to do this and things like that? So it's like... I think we've gone quite long here as well, so I think it's a really good episode. So I think what we'll do is we'll sort of wrap it up there. We'll maybe do another one of these sort of topics, or talk more on cancel culture in the
probably later,
maybe less specific, and go into some other options. But let us know if you have watched, if you found this interesting. Please let us know what you think on the topic. I know it's been quite intense, because it is a real sort of story that's sort of happened over the last few days.
I think if people have watched until this point, it would be nice if they comment what they think about these topics, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And we can retake this, like, if we do a second episode,
sure.
We can retake whatever they comment and be like, discuss maybe that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Rene. Yeah. So yeah, please. I know it's been quite an intense one. We've not done a lot of those, so yeah. But it's quite. I think it's one of those ones where when I sent you the space this morning, like the link, you need to listen to this. I just thought this is a really good, it's a really good topic to discuss, and I thought we should do more of this. So. Yep, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and do all that jazz. Once again, always a pleasure. And Rene, thank you for joining, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.